Hello, my good students. Today we're finished with fractions and we're going to go to another topic that's very important. It's called parabolas. Hopefully you've done some of this in high school. If you haven't, I have to explain this so you'll understand the easy way to do it, and also it'll prepare you for any other math you'll be taking in the future. Okay, so watch very carefully. This is what a parabola looks like. It has a U shape. This is called a vertical parabola because it goes up and down. And that's the only type we're going to do for Math 104. Now, in order to graph this, I want you to understand it. You won't have to graph it, but I just want you to understand what's going on here. Points are given here, and using these points and the equation of the parabola, all parabolas are in the form y equals a number, a squared x, a number, a x, and a number. So in general, they say y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. A, B, and C are just numbers that go there, sign numbers usually. Okay, and sometimes they call it a function, so they write f of x. You don't need that. You could just use y equals, and that'll work. Okay, now using these points, here's how we get the points to graph. You start with the equation, you copy it, and whatever number is in the x, you put it for instead of x. And I usually just put a parentheses. It makes it easier for students to figure it out. So to finish this, you'll say order of operations, you square it first. Negative 2 squared is 4. Negative times negative is positive, and then negative 3. Okay, so you get positive 4, and then the negative 3, and then 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 take away 3 is 5. Okay, I'll do one more so you'll get the idea. You get negative 1 squared, which is 1. Minus 2 times minus 1 is plus 2. And of course you have a minus 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 take away 3 is 0. Now notice this number and this number represent an x and a y. That's a coordinate, negative 2, 5. If you look in the graph right here and you go to negative 2 and then up 5, you're right here. Okay? Same thing here, negative 1, 0. Negative 1, 0 would be right here. Okay? Oh, I'll label that. Okay? And then the others are already done and labeled. Okay? Now the line that goes straight through the middle, this line right here, is called the axis of symmetry. And that's what you're going to need to find when you're doing examples for the homework. But you're not going to do it on the graph. I'm going to show you a shortcut in just a few minutes. The answer to this, if you think about what you learned in the past, this is a straight line. It's parallel to the y-axis. These are parallel. So whenever that happens, the name of the line is x equals. Now to know what x equals, you got to see where the line is touching. So the line is touching at 1. See, if you go on the x-axis, this would be 1, 2, 3, and so on. So it's touching at x equals 1. And that's the name of the axis of symmetry, okay? But it's too much work to do it this way because you'd have to do this whole entire chart, go through the whole process to get all the coordinates that go on the graph. Then you'd have to graph it. Then you'd have to draw the line through the middle, and then you'd have to find it. Way too much work. So here's a quick way of doing it. Quick way is to use a formula. Okay, here's the formula that gives you the answer to the axis of symmetry. Okay, the formula, you already know it, and I'll prove that to you in a minute. It's x equals minus b divided by 2a. Okay, now I know what you're thinking. I know it. I never saw that. Well, actually you did. If you look up here at the quadratic formula, remember you learned the quadratic formula? Now if you look closely, there's a x equals, there's a minus b, and underneath it, there's a 2a. That part that I just darkened in, that's this formula right here, the axis of symmetry. So watch how quick we get the answer using the formula. This would be A, this would be B, and this would be C. So A is 1, B is negative 2, and C is negative 3. Now in this formula, you don't need C. There is no C, it's just a B and an A. And the purpose of writing the formula every time you do a problem, by the way, is to make it easier for you. You'll have this as a guide to follow, and it'll help you remember the formula. So using the formula, we write x equals Minus b, just like in the quadratic formula, means you go to the middle number b and you change the sign. So instead of -2, it's +2. And 2 times a here is just 2 times 1. Okay, just simplify it and you'll have the answer. This is 2 divided by 2, which is 1. Your answer must be written with the x, with the equals, and the answer. X equals 1. If you leave this out, it's not an equation. Axis of symmetry is always an equation, so you must put the x. Secondly, if you leave out the x, it could be y equals 1, and that's not the answer. That's different. Okay, so make sure you write it as an equation just like that. Okay, let's do a couple more examples, and you'll see this will be easy for you to finish it. Okay, now this one's a little tricky, because if you notice there's no x in there. But that could be thought of as 3x squared plus 0x minus 5, because 0 times x is 0, and when you add 0, you're not changing it. So this is exactly the same as that. But I wrote it like this because you'll realize this is a, and this is b. So now we go to the formula, x equals minus b over 2a, and we fill in, minus b would just be 0. 0 doesn't need a sign. And 2a is 2 times 3. Okay, and now we simplify. This would be the same as 0 divided by 2 times 3 is 6. And when you divide any number into 0, you just get 0. So that's your answer for the axis of symmetry. Without using graph paper, we got x equals 0. Isn't that nice that you don't need graph paper to do this? Okay, here's another one. Again, we write the formula, x equals minus b over 2a. Now this time, the last number is missing. In other words, the c. You could put it in if you want, but it doesn't matter what that is because that c does not get involved in the formula. All you need is a b and an a. So in this case, we go x equals minus b. That means go to the b number, which is right here. Change the sign. You get minus 12. The bottom is 2 times a, so it's 2 times negative 3. And now we simplify. We get negative 12. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And negative 12 divided by negative 6 is 2. Okay, now remember, that's not the answer. It has to be an equation. So it's x equals 2. And that's your axis of symmetry. Okay, last one, I'm going to give you one more example. Now this one has all the parts to it, a, b, and c. So 5 is a, this is b, and this is c. Always make sure it's in the order squared with the number, that's a, the letter, just x, that's b, and then the number by itself, that's c. It's possible in some problems that they switch it around. For example, if they wrote y equals 3 minus 20x plus 5x squared, it's backwards. The squared part is over here, so you'd rewrite it, put it in front. This is okay, it's in the middle, and then the number, plus 3. Okay, once you have it in this format, you use the formula, x equals minus b over 2a. Minus b means change the middle sign, so you wind up with 20. The bottom is 2 times a, 2 times 5. Okay, and we could simplify. 20 divided by 2 times 5 is 10, and that's 2. So the answer is x equals 2. Okay, again, I remind you, don't forget the x equals. That's part of the answer. Okay, now you could try the homework, and if you have any questions, as always, just feel free to email me, and I'll try my best to answer it. Bye for now.